Okay, welcome back everybody. We're beginning tonight chapter 40. As we had the opportunity to conclude last week after quite a few classes, the chapter 39, to see what chapter 39 was all about. And I say this because 40 is a clear continuation the topic, namely the final parts of 39. One can go and just see in the link box, just put Tanya on this website or on the TanyaOnline.com, as we mentioned all the time, just to have the ability to see with clarity the previous class or classes and to be able to read it, to learn it with the text as well, easy access to the text as well to all previous classes from the very beginning of the Tanya. So we begin in Perek Mem, the 40th chapter. It's on page Nun Daled, which is in the original text, that is, in page Nun Daled in the original text, and then you can see it in the corresponding English text. So Perek Mem, Ach kol zman shaloi chazer v'lo madavar ze lishma ein limudei eila afilu biyud sfiris hameires be'elam hayitzira v'hasiya. This comes, like we said before, as a connection, in connection to what we learned in the past, the last week, regarding one's learning Torah shaloi lishma, not for the sake of Hashem, and we had the two definitions, or the two levels of Shalei Lishma. One, he just doesn't learn Torah Lishma, not Shalei Lishma, not for the sake of God, but without any kavanah, without any intention. This is the way he was brought up, this is the way he was educated, as a lashon of the pasuk mitzvahs anashim ulamada. Anyway, the one was taught, that's what they do, without any particular thought. So that's not Shalei Lishma. That's not I'm doing it for any ulterior motive, which is not associated with Kedusha, and quite on the contrary. There's examples that Chazal give, She'ikari Rebbe, that people should acknowledge me, I should be considered a master, and I should be recognized, and so on and so forth. Again, the different examples the Chachamim give, which this is an ulterior motive associated with Klippa, with negative, it has negative energy. And as we mentioned, that is a far greater problem than someone just learning Torah, not Lishma, not Lishma, neither. Because that point, the Torah is incarcerated in the Golus, in exile, in the exile of this Klippa, which means of this impure shell, or this impure, which is the motivation, which this motive which the person had in other words, to which the reason he learned Torah for, again, for his own ego. So that becomes kind of a shell, a sack, lashon chigri sack. It becomes a sack which encloses his Torah. The Torah is, says, the galus b'seicha, within a galus, which is which is again, it's an exile and incarceration within the Torah, and therefore it's a greater problem that the person, as we mentioned, has to do tshuva. He has to alleviate himself from that confinement of that klippa, which he created via his Leil Lishma, in other words, because of the ulterior motives associated with Klippa, that which caused that incarceration. So the person has to alleviate himself from it. That's the tshuva which he has to do, as opposed to someone who learns Torah not Lishma, not Leil Lishma, in other words, without any negative ulterior motive. Then, as we learned last week, then there's it's not important to do tshuva. Like we mentioned, then it's always important to do tshuva, but in this context, it's not as crucial to do tshuva, because it's not a matter of alleviating oneself from any incarceration. It's a matter of the fact that the Torah itself was not learned to lishma, so therefore repeat the same limudat Torah, this which you learned, and you'll be able to elevate it on high again, as we elaborated in the previous class. classes for that matter. And then there's the culmination of the 39th chapter, which made it very clear the difference between the two. And so here the Alter Rebbe begins the chapter 40. As long as you did not relearn that Torah Lishma, referring to the former, meaning to say that someone was learning Torah not dafka shalei lishma, with any negative ulterior motive, but stam leilishma v'lei shalei lishma, either. And so at that point, as we said before, what is the remedy to that? That he just relearns that same Torah. There's no need for tshuva here. He needs just to relearn that same Torah in order that Torah should ascend on high through his limud Torah lishma. Which is, again, when he relearns it, obviously he learns it lishma, with some ava v'yira, or again the different levels of ava v'yira, love and fear, and so on. So at that point, as long and at that point, the Torah is elevated on high as such. Again, the details one could see in the previous class. But what he says over here, what if you did not, as long as you did not relearn this Torah lishma, so then like we learned, and he makes it clear over here with a bit more of elaboration that the study, the original study, does not ascend even in the 10 spheres which shine in Eilam HaYetzira, even Ha'asiyah. It doesn't enter, it doesn't make it to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I say HaKadosh Baruch Hu because the Lashon in Zayar is Lo Yochlo, L'Salko, U'Lamekum Kodem Hashem. It cannot ascend and it cannot stand Kodem Hashem in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Yud Sviris, as again we elaborated in the previous chapter, and the Yud Sviris, which is the core essence of every single Olam, that is the Kodem Hashem, that is the Ein Sof, which is Misyachid, which becomes one with the Yud Sviris, the 10 Sviris of every single Elam. Again, we're not going to elaborate much over here because we did so in the previous class, or classes when we learned the previous chapters. So, as we said, is the Ein Sof Misyachid with Elam Abriya, and so what's so special, or rather with Elam HaYetzira, with the 10 Sviris of Elam HaYetzira, or he says over here with the 10 Sviris of Elam HaAsiyah. So what's so special about Elam HaAtzilus, if that's the case? But we said that within every person there's obviously different levels. When one is touched, for example, emotionally, of a gift which was given, which there's a lot of sentimental investment into the gift by the giver, so the recipient feels it also. Consequently, he feels it in a certain place within himself, within the heart. But we all could perfectly appreciate within the heart itself, there's multiple layers within the heart. There's deeper and deeper and yet deeper. The nefesh unites, becomes one usually with the heart, which means the heart expresses the soul expression. So one's going to say the nefesh expresses, connects with the heart on an external level, some type of external level as well. If you're touched by something, meaning to say the nefesh, the soul, was touched by it. So what does it mean? That what do you gain when you're touched even deeper? Apparently your soul is already connected with the outer layers of your heart. When you say you're touched, for example, just give you an example, by a gift, by an occurrence, and so on. Because the deeper within the heart, the more the nefesh, the more the unity of the nefesh, the soul of the person, within that dimension of the heart. The deeper within the heart, the more you have the unity with the soul. In other words, the nefesh mitiyached becomes one with the deepest layers of the heart, more than it becomes one with the outer layers of the heart, though with the outer layers of the heart also it becomes one. Again, any point when you say the person's touch, it's not only the heart separated from the soul. The soul is, when you say the heart is touched, it's the soul which the soul is as well touched, because the soul is united with the sentiments of the heart. But again, deeper one is, the deeper one one enters within his heart, within his feelings, more there is soul present there, or united with the lashon over here yichud. The more the soul is present there. Similarly, the Yud Sfiris, even though it's not limited, as we said here, we say the heart, but it's the Yud Sfiris, the 10 Sfiris, which is, we know it's Chochmah Bina Das. And then Netzach, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisei, Malchus. This is the entire 10 spheres, but I just give the example of the heart because it really applies as well to one's mind. One's Chacham Bina Das. There's a lot of soul invested, or the soul connects to. It's not separated from one's intellectual experience, or this what he intellectually comprehends. There's a soul relationship there as well. Again, we're not going to go into it right now, but we could all appreciate it. Again, we're not talking about just a general thought, thinking about something, just really pondering about something, intellectualizing, using your rich intellectual faculties to comprehend an idea. There's much soul present in that experience. Somewhat we could appreciate a little bit more with heart, even more than soul, but there's some justification to that as well. But we could, in this context, we say Hashem's 10 spheres are united with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we say when the Torah mitzvahs is done with Ava V'Yira, is performed. The Torah mitzvahs are performed with Ava V'Yira, as we mentioned. These are wings which elevate the Torah on high. Where does it go on high? Again, we spoke about this so in such length in the previous chapters. Where does it ascend on high? Deeper within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Ava V'Yira Tivis, the natural Ava V'Yira, reaches the 10 spheres of Elam HaYetzira. The natural, the Ava V'Yira, the passionate Ava V'Yira, elevates the Torah to the 10 spheres of Elam HaBriya. Again, this is all within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The common denominator is that it touches the 10 spheres of every single Elam, which there, the Ein Sof Mitiyached, the Ein Sof, which is again parallel to the example we gave, the Nefesh of the person, the Ein Sof, which is of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mitiyached becomes one, is very much present in the 10 spheres of every single Elam. So, if it's elevated to the 10 spheres of the Torah mitzvahs are elevated to the 10 spheres of Elam HaYetzira, so it's Mekam Kodem Hashem. It stands and connects with the Elokus, which unites with the Elam HaYetzira, which is present in the 10 spheres of Elam HaYetzira. Because again, as an example we gave, it's the Nefesh Mityached with the 10 spheres. So that's what he says. If he didn't relearn again, even not Leili Shma Mamosh, but not Lishma, not Shalei Lishma, you stam learn Torah. And again, what is the remedy to that? In order to elevate the Torah mitzvahs off ground level, like we said, and the remedy to that is to relearn that Torah. But if you didn't relearn that Torah, the Torah will remain on ground level. It will not even ascend, not only to the 10 spheres of Elam HaYetzira, but even to the 10 spheres of Elam HaSiyah. Because again, the 10 spheres are always on every single level, based on the level of every single Elam, host the Ein Sof. As in the example we just gave. Even somewhat, you're touched even minimally. What does it mean you're touched? Means the nefesh was touched, because the nefesh mityached even with that outer layer of the heart, or that level of the heart, where you were minimally touched, moved by, again, an event, a favor, a gift, whatever it is. But if you didn't, if there's no sentiment invested in the gift, or there's nothing sentimental about that story, that event, or whatever it is, it just happened. So then there's no wings which would bring the Torah even off ground level. And as we said before, like we said, no one is ever moved by the mailman bringing a gift, or the messenger bringing a gift. Moved by the mailman. He's just doing his job. To him, it's just in the relationship with you, the recipient, it's a robotic act. Well, he's doing it again. He has other reasons, and he finds his sentiment, the fact that he has a job, and he's getting everything. In relationship with you, it's just a simple act. So it doesn't come off. It doesn't come off ground level. In other words, in relationship with you and the messenger, not at all. And it's normal, obviously. And the same thing when someone learns Torah, Lishma, there's no sentiment at all invested in the Torah, so the Torah doesn't go off ground level. It doesn't even ascend to the Yud Sfiris of Elam HaSiyah. Now we say Yud Sfiris of Elam HaSiyah, we know Yud Elam HaSiyah. There's not only this physical world, which is called Elam HaSiyah, Elam HaMaisa, we know there's the counterpart, Elam HaSiyah, the spiritual Elam HaSiyah, which we didn't speak about it I think till here, even maybe not even once, but because we began with Elam HaYetzirah, because in the end of the day, that the Avavira Ativus, the inherent Avavira, it's a small but yet potent fire, which elevates the Teda to the not only to Elam Asiyah, but to Elam HaYetzirah. In the end of the day, Elam Asiyah is the inferior world. It has the same term Asiyah, like this very physical world. Elam Asiyah, but it's the spiritual counterpart of Elam Asiyah, the Teda mitzvahs, which are not learned lishma, don't even ascend, and not even make them Kodem Hashem. They don't even touch and connect with the Yud Tzviris even of Elam Asiyah. Because the Yud Tzviris, to some degree, not only Elam HaYetzirah, but even Elam Asiyah to some degree, as the example which we gave, unite with the Ein Sof. That's what he says. Let's learn it inside. Again, you could follow Perek Mem, the beginning of the chapter, the 40th chapter. Kol zman shelo yichazav l'amad davar ze lishma, baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekel min dvarim. As long as you didn't repeat this limud, which you learned not lishma, not shalei lishma, you didn't repeat and learn it lishma. Ein limudei eila filim yud tzviris ameiris be'elam hayetzirah v'asiyah. Your study, your previous study of learning this, again, not lishma, but not lishma, does not ascend even in the yud tzviris, the 10 tzviris, which shine, illuminate in elam hayetzirah, and even v'ha'asiyah, even in the world of Elam Asiyah, and the 10 Sfiris of Elam Asiyah. The 10 Sfiris of Elam Asiyah. Why? Ki Sfiris are b'chinas elokus. Sfiris are elokus, and the reason is because of Bohen mislabesh misyached Ein Sof Baruch Hu mamash. Within the Sfiris, which makes them elokus, is because they host the Ein Sof, and as he says in the words over here, the Ein Sof, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, that's the term Ein Sof, the infinite energy, the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu invests, encloses itself in the Yud Tzviris, and becomes one with them. The Ein Sof Baruch Hu Mamash, again, encloses himself and becomes one with them. As we said in the example which we gave, you cannot separate the soul from the heart experience, the heart feelings. When we say I was touched, it's really the soul is touched via the heart, or the heart connects. The soul is right there in the heart experience, and the same thing, the Ein Sof, is within the Yud Tzviris, and therefore the Torah mitzvahs which are not done they're not done lishma, which means again not shalei lishma yet, but it's not done lishma, so they don't elevate, they don't connect with the Yud Tzviris, again, which are misyachid with the Ein Sof Baruch Hu mamash, which become one with the Ein Sof Baruch Hu mamash, so they're not meikam kodem Hashem, they don't stand, they don't connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as he says, b'leit chilur chimo, without any love, fear, without any love at all, la yochlo l'salko l'meikam kodem Hashem, they don't have the ability to ascend and to stand Kodem Hashem, in front of Hashem, like it says in Tikkunim. And again, the touching, connecting with the Yud Tzviris, even of Elam Asiyah, is called Kodem Hashem. And if you didn't have that Avavira, and again, this is the point of mitzvahs anoshim ulamada, you're just doing it, you didn't think much about Hashem within His Torah, certainly you didn't arouse any, not again, your inherent Avavira remained dormant, remains dormant in the experience of your Torah mitzvahs, which means you didn't pay much attention of what the Torah mitzvah is all about. That there's a relationship, there's Hashem, and so on and so forth. This is Torah Hashem, it's just mitzvah Hashem mother, so there was no Avavira at all, no fear, no love at all. So it doesn't ascend even to the Yud Tzviris of Elam Asiyah. That is Pshat la yuchlo l'salko l'mekim kodem Hashem. So what happens to his study? So he says, in the end of the day, because he didn't learn Torah Leili Shma with Chas v'Sholom and any egoistic ulterior motive, or ulterior motive associated with one's ego, to aggrandize his ego, which he's going to deal with again later. But here we see dealing with somebody who didn't learn Shalei Lishma Mamash, he just didn't learn it Lishma. So there's some sanctity to his Teda. The Teda is not in any state of incarceration as of yet. So is limudei oila leichalis, it ascends, but leichalis meduri, to different chambers, domains and chambers, which are called the external dimension of the Eilamus, not the core of the Eilamus. Again, we could see it within our own self. There is the Esesphiris, our intellectual capacity, intellectual faculties, Chachma, Bina, Das, our seven Midas. Then there's different parts of the person's body. Maybe his physical body, his other limbs and organs. The thought, the speech and action, which we all can appreciate, the thought, speech and action as the external dimension within the system of the person, as opposed to his 10 faculties, the Chachma, Bina, Das, and the Midas. So we see within the person itself, and he doesn't compare over here the person of, it's not the Alter Rebbe's comparison in this context over here, but we could just appreciate when we say Chitzenius Ha'ilmis, we could appreciate also there is in every idea, and we psariach solakah, we could see within ourselves, there's the Pnimius and there's Chitzenius. The external dimension of man's, the component of the man's components, or man's structure, man's composure, and then there's the pnimius. So similarly in the Eilamus, there's also chitzenius Eilamus, which are not the core, not the 10 spheres, which again host the Ein Sof, similarly to what it is by man, that the spheres are inseparable of the nefesh. And again, in Eilamus, there are different domains and chambers which, what exists there, there's some type of holiness, similar to the man, the human being. There's human energy in every part of the human being, not only in his pneumistic expressions, because it's all part of the human being, similar to the Eilam, because it's an Eilam Ruchni, there is also some radiance of holiness, because it's an Eilam Ruchni, it's a spiritual world, but it's not the core essence, not the Esesphiris, which are inseparable of the Ein Sof. Again, the Ein Sof Misyache, the union of the Ein Sof with the core essence of the Eilam, similar to the example. That's the pnimis of the Eilamis. That's the making Kodem Hashem. So what happens to the Torah mitzvahs? It remains in that Eilam. It's Eilam. It ascends to the Eilam, but not to the pnimis of the Chitzelis Eilamis. And there's some holy radiance there. And he says, Shebahem Eimdim HaMalachim. The angels stand in these domains. We know Malachim, as holy and great as they are, they still have a shaykhus to chitzenius ha'ilmis. A malach is not God. Malach becomes a shliach of Hashem. When he becomes a shliach of Hashem, like you find by Hagar and many cases in Torah, you find that Hashem speaks and works through the malachim. But the malach in his own entity, is associated with chitzenius ha'ilmis. The Alter Rebbe speaks about it in Geras HaTshuva. You can see in the 4th chapter in Geras HaTshuva, the Alter Rebbe makes it very clear. So they are holy. They are. And therefore they are and exist in the Eilam Esalyena, in the supreme worlds, but in the Chitzenis of the supreme worlds. Malach is not Malach is not the core essence of the Eilam. Malach is not the Yutzviris which unites, which Ein Sof Misyached Bahem inherently. A malach is associated with a chitzenius, or rather he exists within the medures and echolis, in these chambers, which are in these elements. Like the elam again has these outer chambers, which are as well carry a holy radiance from the Esesphiris itself, or as we learned the other day, that even the Torah mitzvah that a person does when it's misyachid with the spheres, it enhances even the of the Esesphiris. Again, you could all use your imagination how it works also by man. The more a person experiences, for example, the more gifts or the more kindness is shared with a person, that in itself expands on the sentiments of his heart, each one of them in their own fashion, in their own way. There's expansion there, which again allows the nefesh to be more manifest. And similarly over here, when the Torah mitzvahs connect Kodem Hashem more and more, obviously there's more elokus, and that elokus, again, there's more radiation. And it affects the outer medeiros, the outer chambers, where the malachim are found. Again, they're holy, but they're not connected. They're not the yutzviris and that's where they find themselves, and that's where the Torah mitzvahs not lishma but learned, just not lishma, ascended too, because in the end of the day they're not in a gullus. They're able to somewhat ascend on high, but only chitzenis elements, like he says, shebahem egdim hamalachim. Or Kamishkos Chaim Vital, like Rav Chaim Vital, which was the favorite Talmud, or the Iked Talmud of the Arizal, writes in the Shara Nevuah, in his the portal of Nevuah, Perik Beis. We know his Sefer. We divided in portals. So in the portal of Nevuah, the second chapter, he writes there, Shemat Teira Sholei B'Kavano Nivroim Malachim Be'el Metzira. He says not only that it ascends to those domains and they connect with these malachim, but he says more so. With Teira Sholei B'Kavana, again, this is not yet Lishma. The Teira Sholei B'Kavana Nivroim are created malachim, angels Be'el Metzira. Good malachim, but it's still. They're still malachim. They're still malachim, which has a shaykhus to chitzenius helemus, the external dimension of Elokus, as opposed to the pnimius of Elokus, which are the Yitzvirs. Now, how could holy malachim come from something which is learned without any lishma? But he says because it's not shalei lishma. In the end, it's Teira, which is Teira's Hashem. The mitzvahs are mitzvahs Hashem. So they say there's the obvious sanctity which exists in the learning Teira and the mitzvahs and performing the mitzvahs on their own. And conversely, they were not mislabish in a sack of galus, again, which is when you learn Teira mamash shalei lishma rachman litzlan. So it is said, and malachim, good malachim are created, but they're malachim, which have a shaychus to chitzenis elements. But good malachim they are, because the person yet did not learn Teira shalei lishma mamash. And that's what he says, Nivroi malachim ele mitzvah. And the mitzvahs, and that's when the Teira, which is learned without any kavanah, and from the mitzvahs b'li kavanah, Nivroi malachim ele masiyah. Malachim ele masiyah are created. And we call malachim, and balichim v'tzura. And all these malachim are balichim v'tzura. So one says over here, on one hand they have an image, meaning to say malachim is, there's these celestial malachim, yet together they have a chaimer, they have a tzura, they have an image, and they have their makeup. Even it says they're composed from the two elements of Eish and Ruach, as opposed to Mayim and Afar, which the human being is much more, again, a palpable image, a palpable entity, rather, a tangible entity associated with the Afar and the Adama. We can all appreciate between the four elements, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Afar, there is the more chumrius exists in the Afar and the Mayim, as opposed to the Eish and Ruach. But it says Malachim have a shaykhus. They're exactly what they look like, no one's sure, but they are composed. They all also have a chaimer, which is they're composed from Eish and Ruach, fire and air, spirit, and so on. So they have a chaimer, they have a tzura, they have an image, which again is a description which chas v'shalom you cannot apply to a Elokus itself. Hashem is beyond that. Which again, when the Yud Sfiris unite with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't say chaimer, you can't say tzura. So on one hand, these are holy malachim, because in the end of the day, it's the Torah the person learned, the mitzvahs he learned. By the other hand, they're balei and tzura, because again, they're connected to chitzenis ha'elamis. So you have this again, this dichotomy again, which within the malachim itself, or this duality which exists within malachim itself. On one hand, they are holy celestial malachim, and the other hand, they're malachim. They're not the Ein Sof. They're not Elokus itself, which you can't again chas v'shalom give the chaimer tzura description, or Elokus the Ein Sof doesn't have no chaimer nor tzura. It's Elokus, it's Hashem. And again, the reason why it's able to even go there to the chambers, the outer chambers of these elements, may it be Elam Asiyah or Elam Yitzira, is because in the end of the day, it wasn't learned Shalei Lishma Mamash. And here he contrasts it to Teira Shalei Lishma Mamash, Rachmana Litzlan, which is again, as Talmud Chacham, a person learns Teira in order to be a Talmud Chacham, Kai Gavna, and similarly, Ein Eila Klal of Mailach. It's not ascending an eye at all. Even to the outer chambers, where the holy Malachim exist and find themselves, they're also not ascending. It remains here in this very physical world. And what's wrong with this physical world? We know this physical world is Madir HaKlippos. This is the capital of the Klippos. This is the domain of the Klippos, and we need not to find it in Sfarim. And we need not to look far. We all know it. This is a place where there is Balabas, who's Balabas in Elam Hazeh, before the Aved of the Yid. And I say clearly before the Aved of the Yid, because no one is a Balabas, nor in the Yid, nor in the Torah, and certainly not in the Neshama of the Yid. And no one could force any Neshama to go into any, enter any of the spirit, in other words, forced to enter into the Balabatishkeit of Elam Hazeh, but that's again the Koach which the Eibishter gives the Yid to override the Balabatishkeit of Elam Hazeh. But on the surface, prior to Aveda, this world is Madir HaKlippos. It's not Chas v'Shalom Balabas. The Eibishter is the Balabas, Eined Milvadei, and that it's synonymous with the Koach. The Eibishter gives the Yid to do his Torah, to do his mitzvahs, and to bring Elokus into this very physical world, which is a world of Madir HaKlippos. What is common and prevalent over here is the expressions of Klippos and Sitra Achra and so on. That's part of the Eined Milvadei, that the Eibishter is the only Balabas in the end. But he wants it to come through Aveda, so the world on its own does not to demonstrate Elokus. It gives the Yid, it's the Yid which, with his Aveda, brings about the Emes Hashem La'elam, till, again, the fulfillment of a Mola Ha'aretz as Hashem, not Gan Eden, but Ha'aretz. This very physical world is filled with the knowledge of God. Kamayim Liyom Nechasim, full to the top, again, which is Mashiach, aligned with. This is the pasuk which again speaks about Yemesa Mashiach, that the world will be full of Das as Hashem. But again, this very physical world which comes through the Aveda, 3,300 years of Yidden serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, demonstrating that in the Emes of Balabas is Hashem, the Emes Hashem La'elam, but the world on its own is Madir HaKlippos. This is a host Klippos and Sitra Achra. Again, we all know what the challenge is, which a Yid has in his Avodas Hashem. He's able to overcome all these challenges. But if it was all spiritual and all holy, it wouldn't be justified to even use the word challenges. Challenges, when you're challenged because there's waves of different influences coming towards the Yid. And the Yid overcomes them. And this is the reason, because Elam Hazeh, Alter Rebbe, again, this is Lashon of Alter Rebbe quotes in the chapter, I believe it's chapter 6, which he writes clearly that this is Elam Hazeh is called Elam HaKlippos v'Sitra Achra, and this is Kol Ma'aseh Elam Hazeh Koshim B'Roim Arashim Goyim B'Y. As we can see, the Alter Rebbe quotes there from Eitz Chaim. So the world which is a Madir HaKlippos, a domain for Klippos, which is not holy, unholy, that's where the Torah Shaloi Lishma remains. It didn't ascend on high, even to the chitzenius of Elamus, of the spiritual Elamus, even to the external dimension of the spiritual Elamus. Mentioned above, of someone who just did not learn Torah Lishma, but if he didn't learn Torah Shaloi Lishma, it's not going anywhere, because it's anchored down through that klipa, which is that very ulterior motive of Elias Talmud Chacham, look at me, recognize me, and so on. This is a klipa which is malbish the Torah, and anchors it down. It remains in Elam Hazeh, which is Madir HaKlippos, the world of klipa. It's not a spiritual world like Elam Hazeh. Even the counterpart of this Elam Hazeh, Elam Hazeh Haruchni, at least spiritual, is Malachim, holy Malachim. How much more so than Elam Hazeh, very holy Malachim. But Torah Shaloi Lishma won't even get there. We explained a little more in the last chapter, a little more of the problem of Shaloi Lishma, why it doesn't even have the ability to ascend on high. But again, here he brings it out extremely clear that it remains in Madir HaKlippos because of the klipa, the shell, the impure, and the klipa based on the ulterior motive of the Limdat Torah, is the Shaloi Lishma Mamash. And therefore, it doesn't have the ability to ascend on high, and again in no form or fashion. He explained the Zayir of the Pasuk, Ma Yisrin La'adam B'chol Amoli Sheyamel Tachas Hashem. Right? We know the song Ma yisrin la'adam b'chol ha'moli sheyamol tachas hashemesh. What does it say in Zayar? Dafil l'molit zeiraisa yavim begin yikore. It's not moving anywhere. So what is the pasuk? What does the pasuk say? The pasuk really says on this before the Zayar's interpretation or addition. Was ma yisrin la'adam b'chol ha'moli? Was it the what is the advantage of man's toil? Sheyamol tachas hashemesh, that he toils under the shemesh. Literally means under the sun, which is the toil and the investment of a person in Elam Hazeh Gashmi. Whatever he's involved with. Vas hater ma yisrein. What is the virtue of it if it's not infused with the Limudat Torah, with the Kiyum mitzvahs? It's a matter of the pasuk is telling us to stay focused. We came here to learn Torah and to do mitzvahs, to overcome the challenges which it takes in order to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, which is very dear by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the emes ha'amal. It says amal Torah, amal tefillah, and so on and so forth. But the tachas hashemesh was ma yisrin. It's a simple meaning, as we all know it. For that matter, tachas hashemesh also has we know there is lashon in Zayir. Tachas hashemesh is everything which is associated with Elam Hazeh, which is devoid of Elokus. Then the le'ela min shimsha, which is again where the spirit associated with Elokus. Tachas hashemesh and le'ela, the le'ela min shimsha. The sublime domain, the sublime area, la'ela higher than shemesh. So it says in Zayar that it doesn't mean only amal, which is not associated with Torah or mitzvahs, or in this case Torah. So lashon the Zayar adds that even your toil in Torah, the ledens, the avid, begin the yikari, if you're doing it for the sake of your own kavod, it remains tachas hashemesh. And again, as we mentioned and spoke a number of places in Zayir, the Alter Rebbe as well mentions it in a number of places. There's tachas hashemesh le'ela min shimsha. The tachas hashemesh is under, in other words, where it's already associated with klipa and sitra achra. Le'ela min shimsha is associated with elukus. So if it's avi begin the yikari, if it's for his own sake, if for his own kaveh, it remains tachas hashemesh. Meaning to say, remains in the Madir HaKlippus. It can't even ascend on high. Not only Lemekam Kodem Hashem, for sure not, to unite with the Yud Svidis of every Elam, according again based on the Ava V'yira, of the person's experience when he's observing, when he's learning the Torah and performing Hashem's mitzvahs. But even into the Chitzenes HaElamis as well, it doesn't go up where the Malachim are found, and certainly even holy malachim are not created, certainly not created from this type of Torah. It remains letata min shilamata min hashemesh. It remains in the Madir HaKlippus. So even amal deiraisa. We'll conclude this class today. Fortunate is the person who comes here. His Talmud is in his hand. Now again, what is the simple meaning of this statement? Fortunate is the person which comes here to Elam Haba v'Talmud biyodei, as had gelernt Torah. A person Chas v'Shalom, again, the simple meaning of the person Chas v'Shalom learns Torah lives a life without Limudat Torah. So after 120 years, he comes up to Elam Haba without Torah, without Talmud. Comes the statement of Ashimi and tells us, fortunate are you, and fortunate is the one which will come with Khan to Elam Haba, Talmud biyad, it is Talmud, will find himself with him, because he learned Torah, Kol Yimei Chai, he learned Torah in his lifetime. So he's coming to Elam Haba with the chariots filled with Torah, or with the packages full with Torah. Simple meaning. Comes out to them and says, V'Talmudi biyodei, based on whatever we said over here, that even a Yegi learned Torah. He learned Torah, but he did it begin the Yikari, he did it for his own kavod, for his own narish ulterior motives, or again ulterior motives which anchor the Torah in the spirit of klipa. Or it's a klipa which anchors the Torah, that doesn't allow the Torah even to set a foot on high. in no form or fashion, again, because it incarcerates the Teda, again, like we explained clear in the previous classes, or the previous class when we dealt with this, what Alter Rebbe deals with in chapter 39, it anchors the Teda, incarcerates the Teda, so the Teda remains in Elam Hazeh. So Gilad and Teda Hater, learning Teda he did, but the Teda did not come, didn't ascend on high. He doesn't have a Talmudi biyodei. Elam Haba is a world of Elokus. If it's Elam HaYetzira, the Gan Eden HaTachton, Elam HaBriya, Gan Eden HaElyon. And if the person learned Teda, begin the Yikare, he took to learn Teda and he toiled in Teda, but because the Teda remained down here, in this Elam Hazeh Gashmi and Modir HaKlipa, so it's not biyodei. It's not where the Neshama ascended to. It remained over here down here in Elam Hazeh. Araych Pshat. And that it's again not that he didn't learn Teda. He learned Teda, but the Talmud is not biyodei. So Ashrei mi, fortunate is the person Shabbat that he comes to Elam Haba, that his learning Teda throughout his lifetime was lishma, was for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The knowledge of that sentiment that it's every Mishnah that I learned, it's about connecting with Anechi Hashem Alikecha. Every Teisvus I learn, every Rosh I learn, and every Rishon or Achrin. And again, it's about thoroughly, like we explained last week, the duality which exists within Teda. It's thoroughly understanding every union in Teda, Kemei Shahu, but in the same token, every union that a person receives is connected to Nech Hashem Lekecha, Trachten Nishrechen Nazelcha Narishkeiten, from the first, on the most simple level. And this one looks and this one recognizes, and she karei rab and again, we're not dealing with something very spiritual and high and holy or any great level of Avodas Hashem. It's just that knowledge and that one accustoms themselves and nemta sefer. He knows this is a connection to the Ein Sof. That's the simple meaning of Lishma. So then, when he comes on high with his Limdat Teda, his Limdat Teda is together with him. Because Shalei Nishar, that he is the fortunate Yid. Because it didn't remain down here in this physical world. Have a good night.